San Diego Zoo. They're a bit stressed already, so I don't want to keep them on the road all day. Could you possibly take them to the zoo for me? I'll give you $100 for your trouble. I'd be happy to, said the blonde. So the two chimpanzees were ushered into the back seat of the blonde's car and carefully strapped into their seatbelts, and off they went. 5 hours later, the truck driver was driving through the heart of San Diego when suddenly he was horrified. There was the blonde walking down the street, holding hands with the two chimps, much to the amusement of a big crowd. With a screech of brakes, he pulled off the road and ran over to the blonde. "What are you doing here?" he demanded. "I gave you $100 to take these chimpanzees to the zoo." "Yes, I know you did," said the blonde. "But we had money left over, so now we're going to SeaWorld." These two guys had just gotten divorced, and they swore they would never have anything to do with women again. They were best friends, and they decided to move up to Alaska as far north as they could go and never look at a woman again. They got up there and went into a trader's store and told him, "Give us enough supplies to last 2 men for 1 year." The trader got the gear together, and on top of each one's supplies, he laid a board with a hole in it and fur around the hole. The guys said, "What's that board for?" The trader said, "Well, where you're going, there are no women and you might need this." They said, "No way, we've sworn off women for life." The trader said, "Well, take the boards with you, and if you don't use them, I'll refund your money next year." "Okay," they said and left. Next year, this guy came into the trader's store and said, "Give me enough supplies to last 1 man for 1 year." The trader said, "Weren't you in here last year with a partner?" "Yeah," said the guy. "Where is he?" asked the trader. "I shot him," said the guy. "Why?" "I caught him in bed with my board." 7. A woman walks into a magic shop and said to the clerk that her were too small and that she heard they could help her. The clerk pulls out a magic potion and says that if she drank it, then for the next 24 hours, her would grow a little every time she bumps into a man and they say something like, "Excuse me?" or "Pardon me." So she buys the potion and drinks it. Then, as soon as she leaves the shop, she bumps into a man and he says, "Excuse me." Then she feels her grow slightly and runs off, yelling that it works. And she spends hours bumping into men until she's got a huge pair of melons. But just when she is satisfied with her new she accidentally bumps into a French man. And he says, "1,000 pardons, my dear." The next day, the biggest headline on the news is, "Flying torpedoes kill French man in store." 8. A blonde soldier was on sentry duty at the main gate. Her orders were clear. No car was to enter unless it had a special sticker on the windshield. A big army car came up with a general seated in the back. The sentry said, "Halt! Who goes there?" "Blonde," the chauffeur, a corporal, says, "General Wheeler." "I'm sorry, I can't let you through. You've got to have a sticker on the windshield." The general said, "Drive on." The sentry said, "Hold it! You really can't come through. I have orders to shoot if you try driving in without a sticker." The general repeated, "I'm telling you, son, drive on." The sentry walked up to the rear window and said, "General, I'm new at this. Do I shoot you or the driver?"
The boss wondered why one of his most valued employees was absent, but had not phoned in. Needing to have an urgent work problem resolved, he dialed the employee's home phone number and was greeted by a child's whispered, "Hello? Is your daddy home?" he asked. "Yes," whispered the small voice. "May I talk with him?" The child whispered, "No." Surprised and wanting to talk with an adult, the boss asked, "Is your mommy there?" "Yes." "May I speak with her?" Again, the small voice whispered, "No." Hoping there was someone with whom he could leave a message, the boss asked, "Is anyone else there?" "Yes," whispered the child. "A policeman." Wondering what a cop would be doing at his employee's home, the boss asked, "May I speak with the policeman?" "No, he's busy," whispered the child. "Busy doing what?" "Talking to Mommy and Daddy and the fireman," came the whispered answer. Growing more worried as he heard a loud noise through the earpiece on the phone, the boss asked, "What is that noise?" "A helicopter," answered the whispering voice. "What is going on there?" demanded the boss, now truly apprehensive. Again, whispering, the child replied, "The search team just landed a helicopter." Alarmed, confused, and a little frustrated, the boss asked, "What are they searching for?" Still whispering, the young voice replied with a muffled giggle, "Me!" 1. A woman gets on a bus with her baby. While trying to pay for the bus fare, the bus driver made a comment about how ugly the baby was. Mad about the comment the bus driver made, the lady was huffing and puffing and was clearly upset when she sat down. "What's wrong?" said the man next to her. "The bus driver said something that offended me," she said. "Well, that's not right. Bus drivers are public servants. He shouldn't have offended you. Why don't you go back to the front and ask for an apology?" said the man. "You're right. I should do that right now," said the mother as she stood up. "Good for you," the man replies. "Now let me hold your monkey." 2. A new monk arrives at the monastery. He is assigned the task of helping the other monks in copying the old texts by hand. He notices, however, that they are copying copies and not the original books. So, the new monk goes to the head monk to ask him about this. He points out that if there was an error in the first copy, that error would be continued in all of the other copies. The head monk says, "We have been copying from the copies for centuries. But you make a good point, my son." So he goes down into the cellar with one of the copies to check it against the original. Hours later, nobody has seen him. So one of the monks goes downstairs to look for him. He hears sobbing coming from the back of the cellar and finds the old monk leaning over one of the original books, crying. He asks what's wrong. "You," he says, with anger and sadness in his eyes. The word was celebrated. 3. An 80-year-old blind man walks into a pub and sits at the bar. He orders a pint and tells the landlord, "I've been blind for 50 years, lad. My hearing's perfectly attuned. I bet can tell you what's happening in any room in this pub." "Oh, really?" says the landlord. "Go ahead then." The old man cups a hand around his ear, tilts his head to the ceiling, and listens. "In your bathroom upstairs, the one at the end of the corridor, a tap's been left on." Skeptical, the landlord sends his nephew upstairs to check. His nephew returns and confirms the findings. "Could have been luck," says the landlord. "Go on. Try again." The old man cups his ear, tilts his head to the floor, and listens. "In your cellar," he says. "I can hear scurrying. You have a rat infestation." "You're talking rubbish," says the landlord, and sends his nephew to check. He returns, and the old man is right. Again. Now intrigued, the landlord urges him to try again. He cups a hand round his ear and listens to somewhere behind the bar. "Ah, in the storeroom down that corridor," he says. "Someone's having at it in there right now." The nephew goes and checks the storeroom, and what do you know? He finds 2 of the bar staff shagging away in there. "Bloody man, you truly are incredible," says the landlord. "What else can you hear?" The old geezer hushes the landlord, places his head on the bar, and listens for a while. He lifts his head off the bar and says, "Yep, your beer pump is definitely out of action." The landlord checks the pump. "Ha! You're wrong, old man. It's working perfectly." "Well then, where's my pint?" 4. One day a man drove by a farm and saw a two-legged goat. The man went up to the farmer and said, "Excuse me, but why does that goat only have 2 legs?" "Well," said the farmer, "that goat is very special. One time my wife was cooking something when she stepped out of the kitchen, and it caught on fire. No one in the house knew about it but the goat, and he saved me, my wife, and my 2 kids." "That's amazing," said the man. "But why does the goat only have 2 legs?" "Well, there was that time the goat saw a big storm coming, and we didn't. The goat ran into the house and dragged us out to the storm cellar. If it weren't for that goat, we would all be dead. But still, that doesn't explain why the goat only has 2 legs. And I remember the time my youngest son was stuck up a tree, but I was too far away to hear his cries for help. The goat ran to me and led me to where he was. Well, that is a miracle, but how come that goat only has 2 legs?" the man said, quite annoyed at this point. "Well," said the farmer, "with all that goat has done for us, we figured it would be a shame to eat him all at once." 5. One morning, the husband returns after several hours of fishing and decides to take a nap. Although not familiar with the harbor, the wife decides to take the boat out. She motors out a short distance, anchors, and reads her book. Along comes the harbor master. He pulls up alongside the woman and says, "Good morning, ma'am. What are you doing?" "Reading a book," she replies, thinking, "Isn't that obvious?" "You're in a restricted fishing area," he informs her. "I'm sorry, officer, but I'm not fishing. I'm reading." "Yes, but you have all the equipment. For all I know, you could start at any moment. I'll have to take you in and write you up. If you do that, I'll have to charge you with says the woman. "But I haven't even touched you," says the fisheries bloke. "That's true, but you have all the equipment. For all I know, you could start at any moment." The fisheries bloke quickly said, "Have a nice day, ma'am," and left. Moral: never argue with a woman who reads. It's likely she can also think. 6. Who shot JR? The mystery that had everyone talking in the 80s. And Who You Gonna Call? The unforgettable line from Ghostbusters. But wait, here's a new one for you. Why did the chicken cross the road? To get to the subscribe button on the other side. Who's gonna hit that subscribe button and join the fun? Don't miss out. Subscribe now and be part of the adventure. Late one night, a man is speeding down an empty road. A cop sees him go flying past, so he chases him and pulls him over. The cop goes up to the car, and when the man rolls down the window, he asks, "Are you aware of how fast you were going, sir?" The man replies, "Yes, I am. I'm trying to escape a robbery I got involved in." The cop looks at him disbelievingly and asks him, "Were you the one being robbed, sir?" The man casually replies, "Oh no, I was the one who committed the robbery. I was escaping." The cop is shocked and surprised that the man has admitted this so freely. He says, "So you're telling me you were speeding and committed a robbery?" "Oh yes," replies the man calmly. "I have all the loot in the back." The cop is now starting to get angry and says, "Sir, I'm afraid you have to come with me," as he reaches into the window to take the car keys out of the ignition. The man shouts, "Don't do that! I'm afraid that you'll find the gun in my glove compartment." At this, the cop pulls his hand out of the window and says, "Wait here," as he returns to his car and calls for backup. Soon there are cars, cops, and helicopters everywhere. The man is quickly dragged out of his car, handcuffed, and taken towards a cop car. However, just before he is put in the car and taken away, a cop walks up to him and says, "Sir, this officer tells us that you had committed a robbery, had stolen loot in the trunk of your car, and had a loaded gun in your glove compartment. However, we didn't find any of these things in your car." The man replies, "Yeah, I bet that liar said I was speeding too." 1. A doctor at an insane asylum decided to take his patients to a baseball game. For weeks in advance, he coached his patients to respond to his commands. When the day of the game arrived, everything went quite well. As the national anthem started, the doctor yelled, "Up nuts!" and the patients complied by standing up. After the anthem, he yelled, "Down nuts!" and they all sat back down in their seats. After a home run was hit, the doctor yelled, "Cheer nuts!" They all broke out into applause and cheered. When the umpire made a particularly bad call against the star of the home team, the doctor yelled, "Boo nuts!" and they all started booing and catcalling. Comfortable with their response, the doctor decided to go get a beer and a hot dog, leaving his assistant in charge. When he returned, there was a riot in progress. Finding his missing assistant, the doctor asked, "What in the world happened?" The assistant replied, "Well, everything was going just fine until this guy walked by and yelled, 'Peanuts!'" 2. At a crowded bus stop, a beautiful young woman in a tight leather mini skirt with matching tight leather boots and jacket was waiting for the bus. As the bus rolled up and it became her turn to get on, she became aware that her skirt was too tight to allow her leg to come up to the height of the first step on the bus. Slightly embarrassed and with a quick smile to the bus driver, she reached behind and unzipped her skirt a little, thinking that this would give her enough slack to raise her leg. Again, she tried to make the step onto the bus, only to discover she still couldn't. So, a little more embarrassed, she once again reached behind and unzipped her skirt a little more, and for a second time attempted the step, and once again, still, she could not raise her leg because of the tight skirt. With a coy little smile to the driver, she again unzipped the offending skirt to give a little more slack, and again was unable to make the step. About this time, a big Texan that was behind her in the line picked her up easily from the waist and placed her lightly on the step of the bus. Well, she went ballistic and turned on the would-be hero, screeching at him, "How dare you touch my body? I don't even know who you are!" At this, the Texan drawled, "Well, ma'am, normally I would agree with you, but after you unzipped my fly 3 times, I kind of figured that we were friends." 3. While the Pope was visiting the USA, he told the driver of his limo that he had the sudden urge to drive. The driver was a good Catholic man and would not ever dream of questioning the Pope's authority, so the Pope sat at the wheel while his driver got in the back. They were traveling down the road doing between 70 and 80 mph when a policeman happened to see them. As he pulled them over, he called into headquarters reporting a speeding limo with a VIP inside it. The chief asked, "Who is in the limo? The mayor?" The policeman told him, "No, someone more important than the mayor." Then the chief asked, "Is it the governor?" The policeman answered, "No, someone more important than the governor." The chief finally asked, "Is it the president?" The policeman answered, "No, someone even more important than the president." This made the chief very angry and he bellowed, "Now who is more important than the president?" The policeman calmly whispered, "I'll put it to you this way, chief. I don't know who is this guy, but he has the Pope as his chauffeur." 4. A guy walks into a dimly lit bar on a Friday night, feeling a bit adventurous. He spots a stunning woman sitting alone at the bar, nursing a drink. Gathering his courage, he strolls up to her and asks with a confident smile, "May I buy you a drink?" She looks him up and down, clearly unimpressed, but with a hint of curiosity, she replies, "Okay, but it won't do you any good." Undeterred, he orders her a drink, and they chat for a while. After a bit, trying to keep the conversation flowing, he asks, "May I buy you another drink?" She raises an eyebrow, smirking slightly, and says, "Okay, but it still won't do you any good." The night progresses, and they continue talking. Despite her initial aloofness, they seem to be having a good time. Eventually, feeling bold and hoping for a chance to get to know her better, he asks, "Would you like to come up to my apartment for a nightcap?" She gives him a long, scrutinizing look, then shrugs and replies, "Okay, but it won't do you any good." They make their way to his apartment, where he pours them both a drink. As they sit on the couch, he looks at her with genuine admiration and says, "You know, you are the most beautiful thing I have ever seen. I want you for my wife." She pauses, looking genuinely surprised for the first time all night. Then with a wry smile, she says, "Oh, that's different. Send her in." 5. On a stormy night, a gypsy man's truck broke down on a country road. He found a farmhouse and knocked on the door. The farmer answered the door, and the gypsy told him, "Sir, my truck broke down on the road. I was wondering if it would be all right if I slept in your barn tonight. If there's any work you need done, I will do it." The farmer said, "There's no need for that. I have plenty of room in my home. You can sleep in my spare bedroom tonight." The gypsy came into the house. The farmer made him dinner, and they had some drinks. The next morning, the gypsy thanked the farmer. Again, he told the farmer if there was any work that the farmer needed, that he would do it. The farmer told him he didn't need any work done. The gypsy said, "You know I'm a gypsy. I have the power to talk to animals. Let me talk to your animals, and I will tell you what they are thinking." The farmer was skeptical, but he agreed to let the gypsy talk to his animals. A while later, the gypsy returned to the house. He told the farmer, "I talked to some of your animals. Do you want to know what they told me?" The farmer said, "Sure. What did they tell you?" The gypsy said, "Well, I talked to your horses. They said that you recently changed the bits that you use. The bit you use now really hurts their mouths." The farmer said, "Wow, that's right. I did change their bits. I'll change them back." The gypsy said, "I talked to the cows. They said that you increased the pressure on the milking machines. It's really uncomfortable for them now." The farmer said, "Well, I did change the pressure. I'll change it back." The gypsy said, "I also talked to the sheep." The farmer got upset. He shouted, "Those sheep are damn liars. You can't believe a word they say." The conductor came in and began checking the tickets of the passengers. He approached the lady sitting in the first seat. She didn't have a ticket. The conductor fined her $20 even though the ticket cost $40 because she was wearing a small skirt and he could see most of her leg. He then came up to the lady in the second seat. She too didn't have a ticket. He fined her only $10 as she was wearing an even smaller skirt and he could see almost her entire leg. He went up to the third seat. Same story. The lady sitting here didn't have a ticket, but this time he got just $5 because she was in a bikini and he could see everything. When he got to the lady in the last seat, he didn't find her anything at all. That's because she was carrying a ticket, you perverts. 8. A man drove over to his neighbor's house and knocked on the door. A boy, about 8, opened the door. "Is your mom or dad home?" the man asked the boy. "No, they went into town," the boy replied. "Well, how about your brother Howard?" the man asked. "No, he went with mom and dad," the boy said. The man stood there for a minute, shifting from one foot to another and mumbling when the boy said, "I know where the tools are if you need to borrow one, or I could give my dad a message for you." "Well," the man said uncomfortably, "I wanted to talk to your dad about your brother Howard getting my sister pregnant." The boy thought for a moment, then said, "You'll have to talk to my dad about that. I know he charges $500 for the bulls and $150 for the pigs, but I have no idea how much he charges for Howard." 1. An old man was walking in the desert with his donkey when he reached a village. The people welcomed him with everything they could, offering him hospitality, taking care of his donkey, and feeding him. While having dinner, he was surprised to be offered camel milk, as it is of notoriously bad taste. He thus asked about it and was told that the village had been cursed with an everlasting drought and that the people had resorted to saving however little water they could find for crops. "Truth be told, I am one of the wise," he said. "I know how to bring you rain. However, you must first bring me a wide bucket full of water, for I need some to bring more." The next morning, all of the villagers heard of his saying and started collecting every drop of water they still had in reserve. In the end, there was barely enough to qualify for a bucket, and they gave it to the man. He then took the water and walked into his host's house. There, he took off his dirty clothes and started washing them. A curious one of the kids saw him through the window and went on to alert everyone around. By the time they arrived, angry and shouting, it was already too late. The old man had washed all his clothes and was calmly hanging them. Shame, shame on you, old man, for wasting our water when our kids don't have enough to drink, growled the chief. But as soon as he finished speaking, the sky darkened as the clouds gathered around the village. It started raining, and it did not stop for 5 days straight. People got their fill, and everyone's reserves were overflowing. The old man was treated as a guest of honor and a hero, and the chief apologized profusely for ever doubting him. Only when he was about to leave had the kid gathered the courage to ask about how he did it. "It's simple," said the old man. "This always happens when I hang my clothes to dry." 2. A big city lawyer was representing the railroad in a lawsuit filed by an old rancher. The rancher's prized bull was missing from the section through which the railroad passed. The rancher only wanted to be paid the fair value of the bull. The case was scheduled to be tried before the justice of the peace in the back room of the general store. The attorney for the railroad immediately cornered the rancher and tried to get him to settle out of court. The lawyer did his best-selling job, and finally the rancher agreed to take half of what he was asking. After the rancher had signed the release and took the check, the young lawyer couldn't resist gloating a little over his success, telling the rancher, "You know, I hate to tell you this, old man, but I put one over on you in there. I couldn't have won the case. The engineer was asleep and the fireman was in the caboose when the train went through your ranch that morning. I didn't have one witness to put on the stand. I bluffed you." The old rancher replied, "Well, I'll tell you, young feller, I was a little worried about winning that case myself because that bull came home this morning." 3. I was at the bus stop today, and a young blonde in a short skirt boarded the bus. She didn't have enough money for the fare, so she hitched up her skirt. The driver took one look and waved her on the bus. The next day, I thought I'd try the same. My bus came along. I got on and showed the driver a bit of leg. He immediately called the police, so I put the bit of leg back in the black bag and ran off. 4. A man was waiting for a bus one day when he noticed a young blonde woman digging a hole, and another blonde immediately filled the hole back in with dirt. He watches as they move up the street, doing this over and over again. The first blonde digs a hole, and the second one fills the dirt right back in. After a few minutes, he decides to ask them, "Excuse me, what are you ladies doing?" "We're working," the first blonde replies. "Just the two of you?" he inquires. "Well," the second blonde chimes in, "there's usually 3 of us, but the girl that plants the trees called out sick." 5. One afternoon, 6-year-old little Johnny bursts into the living room where his father is reading the newspaper. With a determined look on his face and his hands on his hips, Johnny proudly announces, "Daddy, I've decided I want to get married." His father, trying to hide his amusement, peeks over the top of his newspaper and asks, "Oh, really, son? That's quite a decision. Do you have anyone special in mind?" Johnny nods enthusiastically, his eyes sparkling with excitement. "Yes, Daddy, I want to marry Grandma." Taken aback, his father sets his newspaper aside, folds it neatly, and places it on the coffee table. He leans forward, trying to keep a straight face, and says, "Now, wait a minute, Johnny. You don't think I'd let you marry my mother, do you?" Johnny, with a puzzled expression, tilts his head and looks at his father. "Why not, Daddy? You married mine." 1. Reaching the end of a job interview, the human resources officer asks a young engineer fresh out of the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, "And what starting salary are you looking for?" The engineer replies, "In the region of $125,000 a year, depending on the benefits package." The interviewer inquires, "Well, what would you say to a package of 5 weeks vacation, 14 paid holidays, full medical and dental, company matching retirement fund to 50% of salary, and a company car leased every 2 years, say, a red Corvette?" The engineer sits up straight and says, "Wow, are you kidding?" The interviewer replies, "Yeah, but you started it." 2. A lawyer runs a stop sign and gets pulled over by a sheriff. He thinks he's smarter being a big shot lawyer from New York and has a better education than a sheriff from West Virginia. The sheriff asks for license and registration. The lawyer asks, "What for?" The sheriff responds, "You didn't come to a complete stop at the stop sign." The lawyer says, I slowed down, and no one was coming. You still didn't come to a complete stop. License and registration, please, say the sheriff impatiently. The lawyer says, if you can show me the legal difference between slow down and stop, I'll give you my license and registration and you can give me the ticket. If not, you let me go and don't give me the ticket. The sheriff says, that sounds fair. Please exit your vehicle. The lawyer steps out and the sheriff takes out his nightstick and starts beating the lawyer with it. The sheriff says, do you want me to stop or just slow down? 3. A doctor and a lawyer are talking at a party. Their conversation is constantly interrupted by people describing their ailments and asking the doctor for free medical advice. After an hour of this, the exasperated doctor asks the lawyer, what do you do to stop people from asking you for legal advice when you're out of the office? I give it to them, replies the lawyer, and then I send them a bill. The doctor is shocked, but agrees to give it a try. The next day, still feeling slightly guilty, the doctor prepares the bills. When he goes to place them in his mailbox, he finds a bill from the lawyer. 6. A local United Way office realized that the organization had never received a donation from the town's most successful lawyer. The person in charge of contributions called him to persuade him to contribute. Our research shows that out of a yearly income of at least $500,000, you did not give a penny to charity. Wouldn't you like to give back to the community in some way? The lawyer mulled this over for a moment and replied, first, did your research also show that my mother is dying after a long illness and has medical bills that are several times her annual income? Embarrassed, the United Way rep mumbled, no. The lawyer interrupts, or that my brother, a disabled veteran, is blind and confined to a wheelchair? The stricken United Way rep began to stammer out an apology, but was interrupted again. Or that my sister's husband died in a traffic accident, the lawyer's voice rising in indignation, leaving her penniless with 3 children? The humiliated United Way rep, completely beaten, said simply, I had no idea. On a roll, the lawyer cut him off once again. So if I don't give any money to them, why should I give any to you?
A priest and a lawyer walk into a bakery. The lawyer looks around shrewdly, grabs 3 freshly baked buns, and quickly slips them into his pockets. He then tells the priest, that took great skill to steal those buns. The owner didn't even see me. The priest replies, that's just simple thievery. I will show you how to do it the honest way and get the same results. The priest then proceeds to call out to the owner of the bakery, sir, I want to show you a miracle of the Lord. Curious and slightly skeptical, the owner wipes his hands on his apron and approaches the priest. A miracle, you say? All right, I'm listening, he replies. The priest asks for a bun, which the owner hands over without hesitation. The priest then steps outside and gives the bun to a homeless man sitting by the door, who accepts it gratefully. Returning inside, the priest asks for another bun, repeating the process, and then does so a 3rd time. Each time, the owner obliges, albeit with growing curiosity. Finally, after the 3rd bun has been given away, the owner, puzzled but patient, asks, all right, Father, I've seen you give away 3 of my buns. Now, where's the miracle you promised? The priest replies, look in the lawyer's pockets. 1. 2 old friends are sitting on a bench in the park, enjoying the sunshine and the gentle breeze. As they reminisce about their younger days, the conversation naturally shifts to the topic of getting older. You know, says the first man, leaning back and stretching his legs. Women sure have all the luck when it comes to getting older. His friend raises an eyebrow, curious. What do you mean by that? He asks, turning to face him. Well, says the man with a sigh, I can't remember the last time I was able to make love to my wife. My health's been going downhill and it just doesn't seem possible anymore. But my wife, on the other hand, she's healthier than ever. Healthier? How's that even possible? His buddy wonders aloud, genuinely puzzled. Well, the man explains, she hasn't had a headache in years. 2. A man was on his way home from a party when he was pulled over by a police officer. As the officer approached the vehicle, he noticed a large number of knives in the back seat. Looking at the driver, he asked, "Sir, do you have a good reason for needing all those large knives?" Smiling, the driver said, "Why yes, I juggle them." Realizing the officer was giving him a skeptical look, the driver said, "Officer, with your permission, I'd be more than glad to give you a demonstration." Cautiously, the officer stepped back and said, "All right, but you'd better be telling the truth." Soon, the man was on the side of the road, tossing the knives high into the air with ease. 2 old men happened to drive by and both gazed in astonishment. One of the men looked at the other and said, "Sure am glad I gave up drinking. These sobriety tests are getting ridiculous." 3. A guy lands a new job and his boss offers him a deal. "If you marry my daughter, I'll make you a partner, give you an expense account, a Mercedes, and $1 million salary." Curious, the guy asks, "What's wrong with her?" The boss shows him a photo, and she's extremely unattractive. The boss adds, "Not just ugly, she's also as dumb as a rock." The guy replies, "No thanks, no matter what you offer." The boss ups the ante. "How about a $5 million salary and a mansion on Long Island?" The guy thinks it over and decides to accept, figuring he can always put a bag over her head when he sleeps with her a year later. He's hanging an original Van Gogh painting that he bought with his newly acquired wealth. Climbing a ladder, he calls to his wife, "Bring me a hammer." She mutters, get the hammer," and fetches a hammer. Next, he says, "Get me some nails." She mumbles, get the nails," and brings him some nails. After realizing the nail won't hold the painting, he calls out, "I think I'll need a screw." His wife mutters, "Get the bag." The wise old Mother Superior from County Tipperary was dying. The nuns gathered around her bed, trying to make her comfortable. They gave her some warm milk to drink, but she refused it. One of the nuns took the glass back to the kitchen, remembering a bottle of Irish whiskey received as a gift the previous Christmas. She opened it and poured a generous amount into the warm milk. Back at Mother Superior's bed, she held the glass to her lips. Mother Superior drank a little, then a little more. Before they knew it, she had drunk the whole glass down to the last drop. "Mother," the nuns pleaded, "please give us some wisdom before you die." She raised herself up in bed with a pious look on her face and said, "Don't sell that cow." 6. A soldier shows up for military training but realizes he forgot to bring his gun. The sergeant hands him a stick and gestures to the training field. "You'll have to use this, soldier. If you need to shoot someone, just aim your stick at them and shout, 'Bangety bang bang.' If someone gets too close to you, poke them in the gut with it as though it was a bayonet and shout, 'Stabbity stab stab. Now get moving.'" The soldier thinks this is pretty ridiculous, but to his surprise, when he aims his stick at a fellow trainee across the field and shouts, "Bangety bang bang," the other soldier goes down in a theatrical display. Then another trainee tries to run past him, so he pokes the guy in the ribs and shouts, "Stabbity stab stab." And he too goes down, pretending to be dead. So the soldier starts running through the mock battlefield, shouting "Bangety bang bang" and occasionally "Stabbity stab stab." until eventually he realizes he's the last man standing. He's feeling pretty proud of himself until another soldier rounds a corner and starts walking toward him. Slowly, stiffly, menacingly. The soldier takes aim with his stick and shouts, "Bangity bang bang!" But the other soldier doesn't go down this time. He keeps approaching, arms stiff at his sides, boots stomping aggressively into the ground. The soldier begins to sweat. He clears his throat, adjusts grip on his stick and hollers, "Bangity bang bang!" But nothing happens. The other soldier keeps marching toward him. Now the soldier panics. He pretends to reload his stick and desperately cries out, "Bangity bang bang! Bangity bang bang! Stabbity stab stab!" But to his dismay, nothing works. Finally, the other soldier reaches him, kicks him in the shin and knocks him onto the ground. He stands over the fallen soldier and says, "Tankety tank tank." A priest and a lawyer walk into a bakery. The lawyer looks around shrewdly, grabs 3 freshly baked buns, and quickly slips them into his pockets. He then tells the priest, "That took great skill to steal those buns." "The owner didn't even see me." The priest replies, "That's just simple thievery. I will show you how to do it the honest way and get the same results." The priest then proceeds to call out to the owner of the bakery, "Sir, I want to show you a miracle of the Lord." Curious and slightly skeptical, the owner wipes his hands on his apron and approaches the priest. "A miracle, you say? All right, I'm listening," he replies. The priest asks for a bun, which the owner hands over without hesitation. The priest then steps outside and gives the bun to a homeless man sitting by the door, who accepts it gratefully. Returning inside, the priest asks for another bun, repeating the process, and then does so a 3rd time. Each time, the owner obliges, albeit with growing curiosity. Finally, after the 3rd bun has been given away, the owner, puzzled but patient, asks, "All right, Father, I've seen you give away 3 of my buns. Now, where's the miracle you promised?" The priest replies, "Look in the lawyer's pockets." 1. 2 old friends are sitting on a bench in the park, enjoying the sunshine and the gentle breeze. As they reminisce about their younger days, the conversation naturally shifts to the topic of getting older. "You know," says the first man, leaning back and stretching his legs, "women sure have all the luck when it comes to getting older." His friend raises an eyebrow, curious. "What do you mean by that?" he asks, turning to face him. "Well," says the man with a sigh, "I can't remember the last time I was able to make love to my wife. My health's been going downhill and it just doesn't seem possible anymore. But my wife, on the other hand, she's healthier than ever." "Healthier? How's that even possible?" His buddy wonders aloud, genuinely puzzled. "Well," the man explains, "she hasn't had a headache in years." 2. A man was on his way home from a party when he was pulled over by a police officer. As the officer approached the vehicle, he noticed a large number of knives in the back seat. Looking at the driver, he asked, "Sir, do you have a good reason for needing all those large knives?" Smiling, the driver said, "Why yes, I juggle them." Realizing the officer was giving him a skeptical look, the driver said, "Officer, with your permission, I'd be more than glad to give you a demonstration." Cautiously, the officer stepped back and said, "All right, but you'd better be telling the truth." Soon, the man was on the side of the road, tossing the knives high into the air with ease. 2 old men happened to drive by and both gazed in astonishment. One of the men looked at the other and said, "Sure am glad I gave up drinking." These sobriety tests are getting ridiculous. 3. A guy lands a new job and his boss offers him a deal. If you marry my daughter, I'll make you a partner, give you an expense account, a Mercedes, and $1 million salary. Curious, the guy asks, what's wrong with her? The boss shows him a photo, and she's extremely unattractive. The boss adds, not just ugly, she's also as dumb as a rock. The guy replies, no thanks, no matter what you offer. The boss ups the ante. How about a $5 million salary and a mansion on Long Island? The guy thinks it over and decides to accept, figuring he can always put a bag over her head when he sleeps with her a year later. He's hanging an original Van Gogh painting that he bought with his newly acquired wealth. Climbing a ladder, he calls to his wife, bring me a hammer. She mutters, get the hammer, and fetches a hammer. Next, he says, get me some nails. She mumbles, get the nails, and brings him some nails. After realizing the nail won't hold the painting, he calls out, I think I'll need a screw. His wife mutters, get the bag. The wise old Mother Superior from County Tipperary was dying. The nuns gathered around her bed, trying to make her comfortable. They gave her some warm milk to drink, but she refused it. One of the nuns took the glass back to the kitchen, remembering a bottle of Irish whiskey received as a gift the previous Christmas. She opened it and poured a generous amount into the warm milk. Back at Mother Superior's bed, she held the glass to her lips. Mother Superior drank a little, then a little more. Before they knew it, she had drunk the whole glass down to the last drop. Mother, the nuns pleaded, please give us some wisdom before you die. She raised herself up in bed with a pious look on her face and said, don't sell that cow. 6. A soldier shows up for military training but realizes he forgot to bring his gun. The sergeant hands him a stick and gestures to the training field. You'll have to use this, soldier. If you need to shoot someone, just aim your stick at them and shout, bangety bang bang. If someone gets too close to you, poke them in the gut with it as though it was a bayonet and shout, stabbity stab stab. Now get moving. The soldier thinks this is pretty ridiculous, but to his surprise, when he aims his stick at a fellow trainee across the field and shouts, bangety bang bang, the other soldier goes down in a theatrical display. Bangety bang bang! But nothing happens. The other soldier keeps marching toward him. Now the soldier panics. He pretends to reload his stick and desperately cries out, bangety bang bang, bangety bang bang, stabbity stab stab. But to his dismay, nothing works. Finally, the other soldier reaches him, kicks him in the shin, and knocks him onto the ground. He stands over the fallen soldier and says, tankety tank tank.
Late one night, a police officer was patrolling a desolate area popular with young couples doing more than just sitting in the dark. Catching his attention was a couple in a car with the interior light on. Moving closer, the cop could see a young man behind the steering wheel reading a newspaper. In the back seat, a young blonde was knitting. The lawman walked up to the vehicle and knocked on the driver's side window. The startled lad rolled it down and said, "Yes, officer." "What are you doing?" the cop asked. "Isn't it obvious?" the young man replied. "I'm reading today's newspaper." Pointing to the blonde in the back seat, the policeman grunted. "And what's she doing?" "I believe she's knitting a sweater," the guy behind the wheel responded. "How old are you?" the cop inquired. "I'm 22, officer. And the girl? How old is she?" The dude in the driver's seat looked at his watch and said, "She'll turn 18 in 10 minutes. 1, The wife and I were in town shopping, and as we came out of a store, 3 attractive young women, aged between 18 and 20, walked by wearing tiny cropped tops and short skirts. One of them, a tall blonde, had really fantastic long-toned and tanned legs. I gently nudged my wife and said, "I bet you wish you still had legs like that." She got really upset with me. In fact, I could still hear her sobbing as I wheeled her up the ramp into the next store. 2. A husband calls the sheriff's office to report his wife missing. Husband: "My wife is missing. She went shopping yesterday and has not come home." Sheriff: "Height?" Husband: "I'm not sure. A little over 5 feet tall." Sheriff: "Weight?" Husband: "Don't know. Not slim, not really fat." Sheriff: "Color of eyes?" Husband: "Sort of brown, I think. Never really noticed." Sheriff: "Color of hair?" Husband: "Changes a couple of times a year. Maybe dark brown now. I can't remember." Sheriff: "What was she wearing?" Husband: "Could have been pants or maybe a skirt or shorts. I don't know exactly." Sheriff: "What kind of car did she go in?" Husband: "She went in my truck." Sheriff: "What kind of truck was it?" Husband: "A 2016 Pearl White Ram Limited 4x4 with 6.4L Hemi V8 engine ordered with the Ram box bar and fridge option, LED lighting, backup and front camera, moose hide leather heated and cooled seats, climate-controlled air conditioning. It has a custom matching white cover for the bed and WeatherTech floor mats. Trailering package with gold hitch, sunroof, DVD with full GPS navigation, satellite radio, Cobra 75 WX ST40 channel CB radio, 6 cup holders, 3 USB ports, and 4 power outlets. I added special alloy wheels and off-road Toyo tires. It has custom retracting running boards and underflow wheel well lighting." At this point, the husband started choking up. Sheriff: "Take it easy, sir. We'll find your truck." 3. During a drug rehab session, an addict shares, "I lost so much weight doing crack. When you're addicted to crack, you don't have an appetite." The next addict shares, "I lost so much weight doing cocaine. I spent all my money and couldn't afford to eat." The next addict shares, "I lost so much weight using meth. I lost all my teeth and couldn't chew solid food." The last addict shares, "I lost so much weight using Viagra." The other addicts looked at him skeptically and asked, "How did you lose weight using Viagra?" The addict responds, "Who the hell has time to eat?" 4. With the International Mathematics Conference in town, the bars around the convention center were hopping. As was her custom, the evening manager was going from table to table greeting her guests. When she got to the first table, there were 8 mathematicians seated. Strange, she thought, since there were only 6 seats, but some of them were getting a bit frisky and were sitting on others' laps. When she got to the second table, there were 4 mathematicians seated. A bit more normal, she thought. Probably continue some debate from the afternoon session. When she got to the third table, there were 2 mathematicians seated. Ah, convention love, she sighed. When she got the fourth table, there was just 1 mathematician seated. Well, these mathematicians are sometimes solitary types, she thought. When she got to the 5th table, she called the police. 5. A man goes to the dentist to ask how much it would be to pull a tooth. $100, said the dentist. Oh, that's expensive, said the Maine. Do you have anything cheaper? That's the normal price for an extraction, said the dentist. The man thinks about it. What about if you don't use the anesthetic? Well, that would be unusual, but we could do that. It would be about $75. The man thinks some more. What about if you used a trainee and no anesthetic? Well, said the dentist, I think that could work, but it would be a lot more painful. I think that would be about $35. The man thought some more. That's still a lot. What if you make it a training session with a student doing the extraction and the other students can watch? The dentist says, okay, that would be good for the students, but it will be traumatic to have it done that way. I'll charge you $5 for that. Great, said the man. That's perfect. Can I book my wife for her appointment on Wednesday? 6. A man is sitting in a new sports car when a little girl pulls up beside him on her new bicycle she just received for Christmas. She knocks on his window, which he rolls down to see what she wants. "Want a race, mister?" she asks, ringing her bell and twirling the elastic streamers on her handlebars. "Sure," the man laughs. The light turns green, and he floors the pedal. The car takes off like a shot, and he leaves the little girl in the dust. A few seconds later, though, he sees something gaining on him in his mirror, fast. He just barely catches a glimpse of the little girl on her bike as she shoots past him. "She must be going 80 miles per hour," he shouts and shifts into a higher gear, pushing the car even faster. He quickly blasts past her as if she were standing still. But again, just a few seconds later, she shoots past him, now doing over 100 miles an hour on her little bike. Going so fast, sparks and smoke are streaming from her training wheels. After another few seconds, he comes to a curve where he sees the little girl crashed in a heap on the side of the road. He pulls over and jumps out to see if she's okay. Miraculously, she's survived. So he asks, "Why did you go so fast?" Just as she falls unconscious, the little girl replies, "My streamers got caught on your mirror." 7. Little Johnny asks his father for a $200 bicycle for his birthday. Johnny's father says, "We have an $80,000 mortgage on the house, and I just got laid off. There won't be a $200 bike this year." 2 days later, little Johnny walks out of the house with all his belongings in a suitcase. His father asks him why he's leaving. Johnny says, "Early this morning, I was walking past your room, and I heard you tell Mommy that you were pulling out, and Mommy said that you should wait because she was coming too, and I'll be damned if I'll get stuck with an $80,000 mortgage." 8. A guy goes to Africa to teach a native tribe how to speak English. The guy said to the chief, "Lion," and the chief would say, "Lion." The guy said, "Tiger," and the chief said, "Tiger." After a couple of weeks, the chief was understanding English fairly well. The man and the chief are having a stroll down a pathway when they see a man and a woman having sex in the bushes. The man was a little embarrassed, so he said to the chief, "Man rides a bicycle." The chief took out his spear and killed both of them. The guy said, "Why would you do that?" The chief said, "That's my bicycle he is riding." 9. Two priests were talking when one of them told the other that his brand new bicycle had been stolen. He says that it must have been a member of his congregation, as he last saw it at the church. The other priest says, "This Sunday during service have your congregation recite the 10 Commandments. Hopefully the thief will feel guilty and come forward." So the two priests depart. A week later, the two priests meet again, and the first priest happily reports that he got his bicycle. "So the 10 Commandments worked?" the second priest asks. "Yes," answers the first priest. "We got to 'Thou shalt not commit adultery.' And I remembered where I had left it." 10. A psychiatrist was conducting a therapy support group session with 4 young mothers and their small children. "You all have obsessions," he stated. To the first mother, he said, "You are obsessed with eating. You've even named your daughter Candy." He turned to the second mother and said, "Your obsession is with money. Again, it manifests itself in your child's name, Penny." He looked at the third mother and observed, "Your obsession is with alcohol. This too shows itself in your child's name, Brandy." At this point, the last mother quickly got up, took her little boy by the hand and whispered, "Come on, Diak, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. We have to pick up Peter and Willie at the Johnsons and go get dinner." 11. A man walks into his first session with a psychiatrist. His mood is almost as dark as the room. Shades drawn almost fully closed with just enough light to cast shadows like a priest's confessional stall. Perfect, he thinks. This will be easier if he can't see the tears welling in my eyes. He sits down and breathes a heavy sigh. The clock ticks against the silence. He wants to speak first, but he fights with the fear and the lump in his throat to say aloud the fears he has kept locked secret within himself. Once the floodgates open, the emotions start pouring out like a sluice that can't be closed. I just don't know where to begin. All my life, My father psychologically tormented me. My first memory of him was his piercing laughter as he hurt me over and over. It went on for so long that I never believed life could be any other way. The scars are all over my body, but I'd gladly take 10 times as many wounds on my body if my mind can be healed. I just can't let go. The psychiatrist leans forward out of the shadows to speak, but the man can't stop himself. I tried to run away so many times. No matter what, he always found me. Even when I went to the neighbor's house banging on the door, somehow he knew I would be there, and he was already inside waiting for me. He flung the door open and mockingly pretended to be glad to find me, before expressing his joy with a fresh round of beating. Once I even ran to the school at night hoping to find a teacher. There he was, in a janitor outfit, smiling at me with that sickening grin as he raised the mop to beat me senseless. I know what you're going to say. I'm an adult now. I can stand on my own. I'm not that frightened child anymore. But don't you understand? He always finds me. No matter how far I move away, he will always be around the corner. Maybe it will take him longer each time. When I was in college, I stayed away for 3 years before he finally walked into my lecture, having just murdered the professor and taken his place. I told the cops, but they never believed me. They never found the body, so I just dropped out and ran as far as I could. I know what you're about to ask. Well, it's been 10 years, but I still can't relax. I just know he'd coming somewhere. Please help me, doctor. I'm desperate and at the end of my rope. The psychiatrist leaned forward out of the shadows and with a huge grin on his face shouted, "Hi, desperate and at the end of my rope. I'm Dad." 12. 2 older guys were sitting on their usual park bench one morning. The 87-year-old had just finished his morning jog. The 80-year-old was amazed at his friend's stamina and asked him how he managed to have so much energy. The 87-year-old said, "Well, I eat rye bread every day. It keeps your energy level high and you'll have great stamina with the ladies." So on the way home, the 80-year-old stopped at the bakery. As he was looking around, the cashier asked if he needed any help. He said, "Do you have any rye bread?" She said, "Yes, there's a whole shelf of it. Would you like some?" "I want 5 loaves," he answered. She said, "My goodness, 5 loaves. By the time you get to the 3rd loaf, it'll be hard." Shocked, the old man replied, "I can't believe it. Everybody knows about this shit but me." 13. 2 engineering majors, geeks, meet. One tell the other what happened to him. "Yesterday, I had the strangest of things happen. I was walking home from class when a young, beautiful woman on a bicycle stopped in front of me." His friend begged him to continue. "So, she looked me up and down, ripped her clothes off, stood naked before me and said, 'Whatever you want, just take it.'" The friend looked puzzled. "Wow, what did you do?" "I took the bike and thanked the lady," said the first geek. The second geek nodded in agreement. "Makes sense. The clothes probably weren't your size and she had ripped them apart." 14. A Mexican guy comes riding up to the border on his bicycle with 2 big sacks over his shoulder. He tells the border guard that the sacks are full of sand, but the guard doesn't believe him. The guard detains the guy and rips open the bags, but there's nothing but sand. He even has the sand analyzed only to find that it really is just sand. And the sack is just a plain sack. 2 days later, the same thing happens. And then it happens again, 2 days after that. Every time, that guy is on the bike carrying nothing but sand. This goes on for 7 years. It drives the border guard crazy. He loses his job because of it. One day, he tracks the Mexican guy down and says to him, "I'm no longer a border guard, but I gotta know, what is it that you're smuggling? Because I know you're smuggling something." The bicycle guy smiles at him and says, "Bicycles, sucker." 15. A preacher was making his rounds to his parishioners on a bicycle when he came upon little Johnny trying to sell a lawnmower. "How much do you want for the mower?" asked the preacher. "I just want enough money to go out and buy me a bicycle," said little Johnny. After a moment of consideration, the preacher asked, "Will you take my bike in trade for it?" Little Johnny said, "Mister, you've got yourself a deal." The preacher took the mower and tried to start it. He pulled and pulled on the rope until he was dripping with sweat. but the mower refused to start. The preacher called little Johnny over and said, "I can't get this mower to start." Little Johnny said, "That's because you have to cuss at it to get it started." The preacher said, "I'm a man of the church, and I can't cuss. It's been so long since I've been saved that I don't even remember how to cuss." Little Johnny looked at him happily and said, "Just keep pulling on that rope. It'll come back to you." 16. A woman is milking a cow when an angry bull busts loose and goes charging across the field straight for her. A farmhand sees what is happening and starts yelling and waving his arms to warn her. The bull is charging and the farmhand is screaming his head off, but the woman just keeps milking the cow. At the last moment before she is trampled and gored, the bull checks up, lowers his head, and skulks off in another direction while she keeps on milking. Seeing this, the astonished farmhand runs up and says, "Wow, I thought you were dead for sure. Weren't you afraid of that bull?" And she says, "I would have been, but this cow is his mother-in-law." 17. Once there was a wide-mouthed frog hopping through the